I told myself it wasn't really cheating when Sarah from accounting started bringing me coffee every morning. My wife Emma hadn't touched me in 3 months, not since her promotion made her the youngest partner at her firm. She was always working late, always on calls, always somewhere that wasn't with me. So when Sarah laughed at my stupid jokes and actually listened when I talked about my day, I let myself believe I deserved that attention. The first time we kissed was at the company Christmas party. Emma had canceled last minute, another emergency client meeting. Sarah was there in a green dress, telling me how she'd always admired how I handled the Peterson account. 1 drink became 3. Her hand on my arm became her lips on mine in the parking garage. I drove home that night and looked at Emma sleeping on her side of the bed, her phone still glowing with emails, and I felt nothing. Not guilt. Not shame. Just a twisted sense of justice, like the universe was finally balancing the scales. That's the thing about justifying betrayal. You become an expert at mental gymnastics. Emma works late? She must not care about our marriage. She's tired when she gets home? She's not attracted to me anymore. She misses dinner with my parents? She doesn't respect my family. Every small slight becomes evidence in the case you're building to absolve yourself. You convince yourself you're not the villain, you're the victim finally taking back control. Sarah made me feel important again. When she texted, I replied immediately. When Emma texted, I'd let it sit for hours, a petty revenge she never even knew about. I started going to the gym again, buying new clothes, using the cologne Emma bought me for our anniversary that I'd never opened. Everyone at work noticed the change. You look happy, they'd say, and I'd smile because I was. I was happy living a double life, happy pretending I was single during work hours, happy being wanted by someone who chose me every day instead of choosing her career. My brother Marcus was the first to notice something was off. We were at our parents' house for Sunday dinner, and Emma was actually there for once. Marcus pulled me aside while the women were in the kitchen. "You good, man?" he asked, and something in his eyes told me he knew. Brothers always know. But I looked him straight in the face and said, "Never better." He didn't push it, but he started watching me differently after that. Started watching Emma differently too. The affair escalated exactly how you'd expect. Coffee became lunch. Lunch became drinks after work. Drinks became me lying about client dinners and overnight business trips that were really just nights at Sarah's apartment. I became an expert liar, crafting elaborate stories with just enough detail to be believable but not enough to be suspicious. I'd even text Emma from Sarah's bed, saying good night, saying I missed her, while another woman lay next to me. The guilt should have eaten me alive, but I'd built such strong walls of justification that it couldn't penetrate. Emma started trying harder, and that almost broke me. She'd surprise me with lunch at work, not knowing I'd just canceled plans with Sarah. She'd plan date nights, arrange couples massages, buy tickets to shows I'd mentioned wanting to see. She was fighting for us, and I was already gone. I went through the motions, smiled in the selfies, held her hand in public, all while texting Sarah under the table. I was living 2 lives, and I'd convinced myself I was entitled to both. The universe has a way of exposing liars, though. It started small. Sarah wanted more. She was tired of being the secret, tired of spending holidays alone, tired of pretending we were just colleagues. She started pushing boundaries, showing up at company events she wasn't invited to, calling me after hours when she knew I was home. The careful balance I'd maintained for 6 months started crumbling. The mental energy required to maintain 2 relationships was destroying me. I was exhausted, paranoid, constantly checking my phone settings, my credit card statements, my stories for holes. Then my father had his first heart attack. It was minor, they said, but it was a warning. The family rallied around him, and suddenly I was spending every evening at the hospital with Emma by my side. She took time off work, the first time in a year, to be there for my family. She held my mother when she cried, brought my father his favorite books, coordinated with the doctors. She was perfect, and I was sitting there with a secret that was poisoning everything it touched. Sarah was texting, asking when she'd see me, and I was watching my wife spoon-feed my father ice chips, and I felt the first crack in my wall of justification. Dad came home from the hospital, but he wasn't the same. The doctor said he needed to reduce stress, change his diet, take it easy. Mom hovered over him constantly, and we all took turns visiting, making sure he took his medications, keeping his spirits up. Emma created a meal delivery schedule for the family, coordinating who would bring dinner each night. She was incredible, and I was falling apart. Sarah grew impatient with my excuses. My father's health wasn't her problem, she said. She'd been patient long enough. She wanted a real relationship, wanted me to leave Emma, wanted the life I'd been promising her in all those stolen moments. The pressure came from both sides now. Emma needed me to be present for my family, and Sarah needed me to choose her. I was being pulled apart, and I had no one to blame but myself. The second heart attack came 3 weeks later. This one wasn't minor. I was at Sarah's when I got the call, and I had to lie about where I was, why it would take me 30 minutes to get to the hospital. Emma was already there when I arrived, holding my mother, both of them crying. "Where were you?" Emma asked, not accusingly, just concerned. "I called you 3 times, I mumbled something about being at the gym, phone in the locker." She just nodded and pulled me into a hug, and I stood there, smelling like another woman's perfume, hoping she wouldn't notice. Dad survived, but barely. He was different after that, fragile in a way that scared all of us. He'd look at me sometimes with this expression I couldn't read, like he wanted to tell me something but couldn't find the words. Marcus started coming around more, bringing his kids to cheer Dad up. Emma was there every day after work, reading to Dad, helping Mom with the house. She was becoming the daughter my parents never had, while I was becoming a stranger in my own family. Sarah issued an ultimatum on a Tuesday. She was done waiting. Either I told Emma by the end of the week, or she would. The thought of Sarah calling my wife, destroying my marriage with a phone call, made me physically sick. But the thought of telling Emma myself was worse. I built this lie so big that I couldn't see around it anymore. It had become my entire world, and I didn't know how to exist without it. I started planning to tell Emma that weekend. I'd practiced the speech 100 times in my head. I'd tell her I was unhappy, that we'd grown apart, that I thought we should separate. I wouldn't mention Sarah. I'd make it seem mutual, inevitable, like something that had been coming for a long time. It was cowardly, but it was better than the truth. The truth would destroy her, and despite everything, I didn't want to hurt her. I just wanted to be free. Thursday night changed everything. Dad had been doing better, even walked around the block that morning. We were all starting to relax, to believe he'd turned a corner. Marcus had brought the kids over for dinner, and we were all laughing at some story my nephew was telling about his teacher. Dad was smiling, Mom was cooking his favorite meal, Emma was helping set the table. It was perfect, the kind of family moment you see in movies. Then Dad clutched his chest, his face went gray, and everything shattered. The ambulance came, but we all knew. You could see it in the paramedics' faces, in the way they moved with efficiency but not urgency. They worked on him for 40 minutes, but he was gone. My strong, stubborn father who taught me to ride a bike, who walked me down the aisle at my wedding, who still called me sport even though I was 35, was gone. Mom collapsed into Marcus's arms, Emma held me while I sobbed, and all I could think was that I'd wasted his last weeks living a lie. The funeral was scheduled for Monday. The family flew in from everywhere. Emma handled everything, the flowers, the program, the reception. She was a rock while I crumbled. Sarah texted once, offering condolences, saying she understood if I needed space. I didn't reply. How could I? My father was dead, and I'd spent his last months sneaking around, betraying the woman who was now planning his funeral. Sunday night, the night before the funeral, Marcus came to the house. Emma was at our place, finishing the eulogy I was too broken to write. Marcus sat across from me at Mom's kitchen table, the same table where Dad used to help us with homework, and he said, "I know about Sarah." My blood turned to ice. He continued, "I've known for months. I saw you with her at that restaurant in the city, the one you said you were at with clients." I couldn't speak. He looked at me with such disappointment, worse than anger, and said, "Dad knew too." Those 3 words destroyed me. Dad knew. My father went to his grave knowing his son was a cheater, a liar, a man who couldn't honor his marriage vows. Marcus said Dad had seen some credit card charge, something I'd been careless about, and had asked Marcus if he knew anything. Marcus had covered for me, told Dad it was probably nothing, but Dad wasn't stupid. He knew, and he died knowing his son was not the man he'd raised him to be. The morning of the funeral, I woke up to Emma already dressed in black, sitting at the edge of our bed, holding the eulogy she'd written for me. "I couldn't sleep," she said, "so I finished this." I tried to capture his humor, his warmth. "I hope it's okay." She handed me the papers, and I saw she'd been crying. Not for the first time, I realized what I was about to lose. But the ultimatum had passed, and Sarah hadn't called. Maybe I could end things with her quietly, maybe I could still salvage this, maybe I could become the man Emma deserved. The church was packed. Dad had touched so many lives. His co-workers, golf buddies, guys from his veterans group, they all came. Emma sat in the front row with Mom and Marcus's family. I stood at the podium, looking out at all these faces, holding the eulogy Emma had written, and I began to speak about the man my father was. Honest. Loyal. Devoted to his family. Every word felt like a knife in my chest because I was none of those things. Halfway through the eulogy, I saw her. Sarah, sitting in the back row. My voice faltered. Why was she here? She'd never met my father. Emma noticed my pause and gave me an encouraging nod, thinking I was overcome with emotion. I continued reading, but my eyes kept drifting to the back. That's when I saw him. Marcus's hand. Sarah was clutching Marcus's hand like he was her world, and suddenly everything made horrifying sense. The room spun. My brother. My own brother had been with Sarah. The looks, the questions, the disappointment in his eyes. It wasn't about protecting me or Emma. He'd been sleeping with my mistress. The woman I destroyed my marriage for was holding my brother's hand at my father's funeral. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't think. I stood there, at my father's funeral, holding my mother's trembling hand, reading words my wife had written about integrity and family, while my mistress and my brother sat together in the back row. I finished the eulogy somehow, muscle memory taking over while my mind screamed. As I walked back to my seat, Emma took my hand, squeezed it supportively. Mom leaned against me, seeking comfort from her oldest son. I sat there, trapped between the woman I'd betrayed and the mother I'd failed, while the priest talked about eternal rest and peace. There was no peace for me. There never would be again. After the service, at the reception Emma had so carefully planned, Marcus approached me. Sarah was nowhere to be seen. "We need to talk," he said. We stepped outside, and he told me everything. How Sarah had come to him months ago, crying about her situation. How they'd started talking, then meeting, then falling for each other. How she'd tried to end things with me but I'd always pulled her back in with promises I never intended to keep. How he'd wanted to tell me but couldn't figure out how. How Dad had suspected something was wrong between all of us and it had stressed him in his final weeks. She loves me, Marcus said. Really loves me. Not the idea of me, not what I represent, but me. And I love her. We're going to be together, publicly, after an appropriate time. I wanted to hit him. I wanted to scream that she was mine. But she wasn't, was she? She was nobody's. We were all just selfish people destroying each other while the good ones, like Emma, like Dad, suffered for our sins. I went home that night and told Emma everything. Not to be noble, but because Marcus said if I didn't, he would. She didn't cry. She didn't scream. She just sat there, very still, and then said, I knew. Not the specifics, but I knew something was wrong. I thought if I tried harder, if I was better, you'd come back to me. But you were never really there to begin with, were you? She packed a bag and left for her sisters. The divorce papers came a week later. Mom found out about everything when Marcus brought Sarah to Thanksgiving. The look on her face when she realized both her sons had betrayed each other, that this woman had torn our family apart, that Dad had died with this weight on his heart, broke her. She hasn't spoken to either of us since. She sells the house, moved to Florida to live with her sister. The family that had gathered around that hospital bed, united in crisis, was gone. Emma remarried 2 years later. A good man, someone from her firm who'd loved her for years. They have a baby now. I saw the announcement on social media through a mutual friend's post. She looked radiant, holding her newborn daughter, her husband's arm around her. The life we were supposed to have, she built with someone else. Someone who knew her worth from the beginning. Marcus and Sarah lasted 8 months. Turns out when a relationship starts with betrayal, trust is hard to build. She cheated on him with someone from her gym. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. Marcus reached out once, trying to reconcile, but what was there to say? We destroyed everything for nothing. A few months of excitement, a feeling wanted, and we'd burned down our entire family. I live alone now in a 1-bedroom apartment across town. I see a therapist twice a week, trying to understand how I became someone capable of such destruction. She says it starts with entitlement, with believing you deserve more than what you have, with choosing the easy high of attention over the hard work of marriage. She's right, but understanding doesn't change anything. My father is still dead. My marriage is still over. My family is still broken. Sometimes I drive by the old house, the one where Emma and I lived. There's a new family there now, kids' bikes in the driveway, flowers in the garden Emma planted. They look happy. Sometimes I wonder if the walls remember our fights, our lies, the night she left. I wonder if houses can be haunted by the ghosts of who we used to be before we destroyed everything. The last time I saw Emma was at a coffee shop downtown. She was pregnant then, glowing with new life. She saw me and could have walked away, but she came over. How are you? She asked, and seemed to genuinely want to know. I told her I was in therapy, working on myself. She nodded and said, good. I hope you find peace. Then she left, and I sat there, watching her walk back to her new life, the one she deserved all along. I learned that infidelity isn't just about breaking marriage vows. It's about breaking yourself into pieces so small that you can never quite put them back together the same way. It's about watching the ripple effects of your selfishness destroy everyone you claim to love. It's about living with the knowledge that your father died disappointed in you, that your mother can't bear to look at you, that the woman who loved you despite your flaws is now someone else's wife, carrying someone else's child. When people ask me now if the affair was worth it, I tell them the truth. I traded a lifetime of love for a few months of excitement. I exchanged a family for a fantasy. I gave up everything real for something that was never more than smoke and mirrors. Sarah wasn't special. She was just available. Emma wasn't neglecting me. She was building a future I was too selfish to see. My father wasn't disappointed in who I'd become. He was mourning who I could have been. At my father's funeral, while I was holding my mother's hand and giving the eulogy, I saw my wife sitting in the front row, still believing in me, and my mistress in the back row, holding my brother's hand like he was her world, and in that moment I realized I had already lost everything. It just took me a while to understand that some things, once broken, can never be repaired. I'm the cautionary tale now, the story married friends tell each other when things get hard. Remember what happened to that guy who cheated on Emma? They say, lost everything for nothing. And they're right. I am the reminder that marriage isn't about what you deserve but what you commit to. That family isn't about blood but about loyalty. That love isn't about being wanted but about wanting to be worthy of someone's trust. Every morning I wake up in my empty apartment, and I remember who I used to be. A husband. A son. A brother. Now I'm just a man who destroyed everything he touched because he believed he deserved more than what he had. Turns out, I got exactly what I deserved, nothing at all.